all the cousins hate me like to the core because
I can imagine.
yeah. So we don't hire people until we feel that there's a need for someone to really do this. And we started with drones, flew it up to a kilometer's height, and saw the same thing that you would have seen from space.
Imagine if there's a way for us to monitor our planet's health from space. If we could see and track everything that affects Earth, from monitoring natural disasters like floods, earthquakes, and landslides, allowing faster and more efficient disaster response, to supporting, let's say, environmental conservation efforts by tracking deforestation, glacial melting, oceanic changes, to monitoring even our own country's defenses. Hey everyone, welcome to a special edition of Crafting Bharat, powered by Innovations Venture Studio, in association with Speciale Invest, Byte Avenue, and Fart Capital. Our beverage partner is Tribe Kombucha. And in this edition, we uncover the journeys of India's best deep tech entrepreneurs building the future of humankind. I'm your host Nithish, and let's get started. Today we have with us Suyash Singh, the co-founder of GalaxEye Space. GalaxEye is building a constellation of the world's first multi-sensor imaging satellites that can effectively monitor the planet from space. Suyash, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nithish. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Before we talk about GalaxEye itself, I want to go back to the July of 2019. When your team at IIT Madras, the team Avishkar Hyperloop, of course, which is widely known now across the country, and you've been carrying the legacy on forever now at IITM, you actually went to California at the SpaceX headquarters for the global Hyperloop finals, and you happened to meet Elon Musk as well. As an engineering kid trying to build very cool hardware, doesn't get better than that, does it? If you can just talk about through that whole experience, how it started and how you got there, that'd be great, and we'll start from there.
No, thanks for the wonderful introduction, by the way. So definitely, meeting Elon Musk for any engineering student, including me and, most of my team members have been sort of a dream come true at that particular point of time. Let me go back again, as you said, let's go back to July 2019. Avishkar was a deep tech project. It's still a deep tech project that's happening at IIT Madras. The intent is to build a hyperloop project, which is basically a transportation mode to take or carry pods from one point to another in a vacuum tube. I think the intent of the project by Elon Musk was pretty clear to, spark innovations, to spark the mindset to do more science, to kind of close the gap between engineering and physics as much as possible. And, Elon probably did a brilliant job in exciting, making the students excited about that particular project. One of us, one of those teams were us. And, I still remember in October 2017, roughly September, October 2017, I was in my hostel room and I just got triggered by this surfing through general surfing over the internet, and I found Elon Musk organizing this SpaceX Hyperloop pod competition, and I got super excited about it. That night I could not sleep, thinking about the prospects, the possibilities to start a team, build a team. And one of the key thoughts that came to my mind was, if I can't build this team or a project from IIT Madras in India, it would have been difficult to do it anywhere as well. So I took the opportunity, started building a team around it, found a bunch of people who can support this. We failed big time for the first attempt in 2018. We made some pod that was really ambitious in the natures it can really go. It was full of linear induction motors, magnetic levitation, vacuum tube, eddy current braking, and what not, to be honest. But that year we could not make it to the finals of the SpaceX competition, and that got me learning, right? So I put my own money, traveled to the US, understood what's happening in the SpaceX context. And then I learned about the entire competition, right? What's happening? What is MIT doing? What is TUM Munich doing? What is TU Delft doing? And then, figured out the sweet spot. I think we were very, very overambitious about doing many things in Hyperloop, and we just simplified it. Although even after a lot of simplification, it was still deep tech in nature. So in 2019, we really made a much better attempt, much more feasible attempt. And we were the only Asian team to go to SpaceX that year, right? So my entire journey, was full of many things. It was full of procurement experiences, designing something from scratch experiences, building a team, which was all IIT guys, who probably are doing PhDs in some of the MITs and Stanford universities in the US currently. So quite a good experience, went to SpaceX, spent some time there, demonstrated the pod against many other teams in the world, and that got us a lot of not just the attention of of course the PR and media, but more than that, it was something we got into the eyes of the biggest technocrats of the country, and we kind of sparked conversations and we moved forward. So Elon Musk, I think, meeting was a byproduct, but there was a lot of effort executing that particular project, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And what did Mr. Elon say?
I think one of the key learnings from that meeting that I have, and I still remember, right, we asked, at what particular point of time do you stop working more? Like what particular point you stop doing engineering and you really get simulations and you get into hands-on? And he said, you should not take a lot of time. If you cannot execute in a particular limit of time, then you're doing something fundamentally wrong. So 6 to 8 months is probably what he takes to take a concept to some POC or prototype and then get it off the market. And then we all know how many projects that he has executed already. So yeah, that was one of the cool learnings. And apart from that, I asked, when is Tesla coming to India? But unfortunately could not happen.
Very cool. So you've seen like the 0 to 0.5 of hardware building in India, maybe at that point in time, and you extrapolated that learnings elsewhere in order for you to be able to build GalaxEye as well. Mm-hmm. But if I can just take you back to one more snippet, in one of our earlier conversations, I remember you mentioning that you had the opportunity to meet Mr. M. Murugappan, and you had the opportunity to pitch Avishkar Hyperloop to him, and then you got some funding to work on it. You must have raised close to a couple of crores, at least the very minimum, to be able to build that part
crores,
out. 1.5 crores.
Yeah.
As a student-run team,
right.
that seems very high. How did you get to do that?
I totally agree with that. I think another key moment, to be honest, in that particular part of the journey. So 1.5 CR was, of course, no donations can really match that particular number. What happened was, for a student team, any student team in India, the top-notch guys would have a budget of 50 lakhs for that particular year. 1.5 CR was a little too much for anyone. So I remember, we reaching out to MMM sir, like MM Murugappan sir, and, asking for a coffee meeting with him and, discuss what we're doing. And to my surprise, right, when I walked in, he was limping. He had some little bit of a cramp in his legs and in the morning, but he still came to the meeting. He's probably the chairman of one of the $1 billion group in the country, but he still came down and he just asked me, like, why are you doing this? Then I said, sir, this is pretty much that we want to do it in India. Nobody has tried it before. And I think this is an opportunity for us to lead this particular mode of transportation in the country. So then the next statement was, if it is for India and you're the only one, then you should not fail. We'll invest. We will put money into what you want to do. And that was the smallest, sweetest closure of any sponsorship or fundraising that I have done so far. And he was very kind to give that money to us to move forward.
Thanks so much. And interestingly enough, you also met your co-founders for GalaxEye at the Avishkar Hyperloop team. Was the plan always to come out of Hyperloop and then build something on your own after graduation, after the project gets over itself? Talk us through that journey. When did it begin? When did you start thinking about it, and how did it materialize over time?
No, the plan was never to start up. The plan was to really execute more and more deep tech projects, more ambitious projects as we go along. Wherever we might be at an institute, we might be at a corporate company to do that. So we all the Avishkar guys who graduated that year and the subsequent year, went to do some of the corporate gigs. And we were all like separated. Of course, during the COVID times, we were in touch through all online, video calls, mechanism, etc. So interestingly, in my corporate gig, I found a very interesting problem statement. It was a California forest fire where I had to really quantify the damage caused by the California forest fire to the people living around or in general. So my first solutioning mindset went towards saying, can I take some satellite imagery and do a computer vision or some AI on top of it to really get through that? And what I found was all smoky and cloudy images. So then I thought, the satellite imagery whatever is available may not solve this problem. Then I bumped into, exactly at that point, I bumped into something called synthetic aperture radar, or SAR in short, which can see through the clouds and can see through the smoke, or can do nighttime imaging as well. And when I saw SAR, it was so difficult for me to understand that imagery because it was not very intuitive. At that particular point, the idea was, can we really make satellite imagery intuitive as well and available as well, right? So on one hand, you had an imagery that was full of clouds and smoke, which makes it unavailable, but although understandable. But on the other hand, you had another imagery called SAR, which was very tough to understand, although available but not understandable, right? So the idea was can we make a satellite imagery that is understandable and available all the time of the year? And that's where the idea, was struck to me. And then I called my Avengers back from my Hyperloop team saying, let's assemble. We have an interesting problem to solve, wherein if we are able to build a satellite that has multispectral and synthetic aperture radar both on the same satellite, we might be able to give satellite imagery on a consistent basis. Be it cloudy, not cloudy, be it nighttime, doesn't matter. So it's agnostic to whether it is agnostic to time. And we give a user what they really want, right? So imagine a university student in his final year, in her final year, going to GitHub and trying to download a bunch of codes. Today, it's impossible for them to use satellite imagery because of its complexities, right? And availabilities. Now, with GalaxEye, they should be kind of able to develop the code and build so many software as a service applications, which they will be able to do easily, right? So it's what we want to do is simplify satellite imagery as much as possible and make it available throughout the year. So that was the idea, that came not from the Hyperloop days, but it came during a corporate gig. And then we all got assembled because the idea was really a gap. If we would have solved, or if, in fact, we are solving for that gap today. So the idea was to solve for that gap and, create some value out of it. So all these guys hopped on to the idea of building GalaxEye, and that's how we started.
Got it. And you also mentioned a little bit about the corporate gigs that you had even prior to starting GalaxEye, but post Hyperloop.
Right.
Coming out of a place like IIT Madras, one of the best places in the country with great pedigree, and with the experience of having built Hyperloop and taking it to Elon Musk in California, I think that gives you enough credentials to go and get a top MS from any top university in the world.
Yeah.
And then figure out your life from there, take the easy path out. But you've not just chosen to stay back here and then do hardware, but you've chosen to do space tech hardware on top of that from India. Why choose to go through this pain at all?
Maybe it's fun. one of the reasons it's fun. But I think, it is about solving for that one particular problem that you got in, that you fell in love with. For us, hardware or software didn't matter at that point of time. It was about doing something, right? Of course, with the credentials of Hyperloop, it did give us a lot of confidence to go and build a satellite. It did give us a lot of confidence to work around the data and get the right kind of data into place for people to solve for satellite imagery. So I think it was just the love for the problem statement, right? More than anything else. I truly agree. I could have taken the easier path, but I think what drives me or my other fellow co-founders, it's all to solve that hard problem, right? We feel that if we can do it, we should do it, right? Rather than waiting for someone else to solve for it. So it was a sheer love and passion for that problem statement and the physics of it.
Very interesting. And maybe I shouldn't ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
Would you make that choice again?
I would. Many times.
Got it. And I just want to double click on a milestone that you've had after starting GalaxEye and developing your payload itself. I think maybe the last quarter or so, or maybe even slightly before that, you got the opportunity to test out your SAR module on NAL's HAPS platform. And you got seemingly great results out of it, right? And that is not just, I mean, it's a very singular moment in time if you just zoom in and then look at that part, but it's on the top of 2 years of burning the midnight oil for you and your own team members at GalaxEye, right? How does milestones like that feel, that you've built something out there that's not existent, that's very novel from India for the world, and then you put it out and it works?
I think one of those moments for us happened during the hyperloop days, right? So it's have started to become a little more routine at GalaxEye, right? Like, and I'm happy about it. So I think milestones with those clean, outcomes, with those clean timelines, and finishing it on time and getting it delivered, and expecting it to behave a particular way, has been something that the team is now gearing up, right? I'm super happy the way my co-founders have built the team, and we are moving forward. But going back to the milestone itself, GalaxEye is one of those one of the most unique companies in the global satellite imagery space, where we're not saying that I'll build a particular satellite and I'll send it to space, and then I'll learn from it and send another satellite, right? So that is a very capex heavy proposition. So we said, can we really build a payload for a drone, and then can we build a payload for an aircraft? And then HAPS happened, right? HAPS is like slightly above the aircraft. It goes around 17 to 18 kilometers in height. So we said, if we're able to demonstrate the same capability that we are going to demonstrate from space at different altitudes and levels, we will get enough confidence, and there'll be very less risk in putting it into space, right? So, and with drones and HAPS and aircraft, it is much easier. You land it and you make some changes and you iterate it much faster and then put it there. That worked like a charm for us. So I think HAPS which is not available. We have tested the first SAR in the world on any of the HAPS platform in the world. Of course, built in India, in the world. Same with drone, I would say. Probably we are top 2 or top 3 in the world in the drone space as well, and probably in the airplane space, which is a much more crowded space in terms of SAR and optical. That's one. But I think the milestones really helps us to get one step closer to the real, the real satellite, right? And then, of course, to the constellation of satellites. So these milestones not only tell you your own success, that you've done something unique in the world, but also validates your next step. And that's how we have tailored the entire roadmap of GalaxEye, right? Like very uniquely, very lean. Generally you will feel deep tech startups are like super capex heavy, etc. But with a humble seed round and other things, we have been able to pull it off so far. And I hope we want to be that way as much as possible, right? So yeah, but at the same time, it is underappreciated, but the efforts of the team to pull it off, build something which is super unique in the world and make it happen is always celebratory, right? So we celebrate it thoroughly and, get it rewarded as much as possible.
See, at the outset, I think you're a very smart and amicable and generally a very articulate person from what I know. But I want to understand, what is your internal voice telling you at times like these, and maybe when things go wrong or things have gone wrong as well, right? Both at Hyperloop and then here. I'm pretty sure there is a voice like that inside you. I just want to know if you can share a little bit about what that voice is like at times like these.
I've not had many instances, right? Like very honestly, because the problem solving mindset of people and the team generally, doesn't stop you to. Doesn't really stop you and make you think about the risks involved. It is always like problem solving, like one after the other. So it keeps you so much busy, right? So that you don't think about the other side of the story as much. And we have not given ourselves enough time to really think about the adverse moments, etc. But yeah, at times it happens. It's not majorly on the tech side, honestly. It's not majorly on the business side, but it is always on the team building side, right? So something, if you ask me, we really care about who is in the team, right? And are we making sure, are we doing enough for the team members to keep innovating, keep doing the brilliant things that they're trying to do, and not get demotivated from the noise that is sitting outside, right? Because if you go to a trade show or a conference, many people may want to demean what you're trying to do because you're trying to disrupt a bunch of people. At that time, your team members who are representing GalaxEye at that time should not be feeling demotivated. So I really worry about a team more than the tech and business, to be honest, because I think if you have a right team in place, these two things will happen, and your problem solving mindset will always be at work to get things done. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that probably will not really haunt, but keep us worried throughout the journey.
Yeah, just get busy doing more.
Yeah.
So Yash, I want to go back to a very key milestone in GalaxEye's journey on building half of the world. Is you had the opportunity to, once you've made the sensor, put it on a HAPS platform that the National Aerospace Laboratories had put out, and then really test it and get good outcomes as well, right? It seems like a very trivial event, but then it's on the top of 2 years of burning the midnight oil for you and your team at GalaxEye. I want to understand how milestones like that feel for you and your own people as well within the team, and what is your internal mind-wise telling you when these things happen? How do you calibrate then and say, right, what do we do next?
No, I think maybe before we really go deeper into the milestone, let me take a moment for you to explain what is SAR, right? Now, synthetic aperture radar is the full form of that, but what it really means is, it's like a camera, but it can see through the clouds. It's like an X-ray machine that you put into space, and you can pretty much get an image during a cloudy situation or during a foggy situation or even during the nighttime imaging, right? The cameras can generally not look through the clouds and other things. So SAR is one of those technologies, which is very rare in the world, right? Like X-ray vision in space kind of technology. It on our side, it took a while to really get there, right? Hence, what we did was we took some phase-wise milestones to reach space, right? So the idea was always to put an X-ray machine into space so that you scan through the space, look at whatever time you want, like during a disaster monitoring situation, during a defense border monitoring situation, during any other situations where you feel satellite imagery is important. So to build that, we said building it for space can be super capital heavy. So instead of doing that, right, we said let's put this entire synthetic aperture radar or SAR on a small platform such as drones, right? And we started with drones, flew it up to a kilometer's height, and saw the same thing that you would have seen from space. And that was one of the key milestones for us to really demonstrate what's going to come from space. Then we said, okay, what next? So we came to a higher altitude, and then further higher altitude. And that's where the HAPS came in. Now, HAPS is something that flies and that constantly hovers on your head at around 18 kilometers in height. Super useful during the disasters time. Like, let's say there's flooding in Uttarakhand, right? That happens unfortunately every year. Can you really make an assessment of where the, where should we do search and rescue? Can you make an assessment of where the food packets have to be dropped? Such kind of situations, you need HAPS kind of platforms to really be there. But during the disaster, one another thought process that has to come is it will be cloudy and the light conditions will not be as much. So you need an X-ray like machine to be going on HAPS. Hence, we miniaturized the entire sensor stack so much so that it can go on a HAPS like platform. Right? There are very few of them in the world flying today. There's one with Zephyr, which is of Airbus, and they have a brilliant one. So I think putting that particular sensor on HAPS didn't just give us the confidence of technology demonstration, but it's also very useful for many applications such as disaster monitoring or very persistent monitoring of a particular area, right? I think these milestones are certainly something that boosts confidence in the team, and it also helps you to kind of take one step forward towards the space, right? And at the same time, make it extremely useful for any of the use cases that can, be built through the drones or the HAPS. Yeah.
Very cool. Of course, if you look at a larger extrapolation of that feeling of happiness of putting something and then testing it out, is when it gets recognized at the highest levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just very recently, you and your team had the opportunity to speak with our Prime Minister on Man Ki Baat. How was that experience like, and how does it feel? And maybe before that question, I want to also emphasize that for us looking from the outside on how the conversations went about, to see how excited you were, it felt as if there was a sense of gratefulness among all of you that our path is being recognized and then acknowledged at the highest office in the country. So I want to understand how that is like.
Right. I think that was my last podcast, by the way.
Oh, directly with the Prime Minister.
Directly with the Prime Minister, right? So, I keep telling a lot of people that it's the personal podcast of the Honorable Prime Minister, where we're super humbled, super lucky, super fortunate to kind of be speaking to him. He spent around 20 minutes with us, right? I think the day when we got to know was amazing, right? And we were so excited. It was National Space Day, around National Space Day when it happened, and very grateful for the PM office to kind of shortlist us and help us to kind of speak to the man who has been on the pinnacle of the leadership in the country so far. One of the great things that came out of in the entire conversation was, he articulated GalaxEye much more better than us, right? Like when he asked, what is the use case of what you exactly are doing? So we said, sir, we will be helping the agriculture farmers. We will also be helping the defense units. And then he very fondly said, "Oh, तो आप जय जवान भी करेंगे और जय किसान भी करेंगे." So, that was one of the fond moments that we had during the podcast. And he was very, very warm. He spoke to all 5 of us. He knew our names. He recognized our voices. He kind of got into a friendly conversation with one of our co-founders called Rakshit and Kishan as well, where he spoke about their cities and about the sweets of the cities and other things, and so it was pretty fun. It shows the intent of how the Indian government is looking at the private space ecosystem in the country. It also shows how the supreme leader of the country is coming and backing startups like us, if not backing, at least patting on the back that okay, you're doing good, keep doing it, and we'll reach somewhere. So I think those emotions and those feelings really overwhelmed us that day, It was fantastic to speak to him. It was also fantastic to kind of give him an elevator pitch about what GalaxEye does. And of course, I can't imagine to be speaking to the Prime Minister at such an early stage of the company. Speaks volumes on his side, for sure.
Very cool. So IT Madras, Elon Musk, Prime Minister Modi, you're giving absolutely every reason you possibly can for your cousins to dislike you. Are you the coolest in your relatives, among your relative circles now?
I'm actually, I don't know if I'm the coolest or not, but I'm someone who's been the most hated in the entire cousin, all the cousins hate me like to the core because,
I can imagine.
yeah. Because I'm generally not on social media. I'm generally not here and there, and I like to build all these hard tech projects. So yeah, certainly they hate me, and I don't happen to be at home also at times. So I don't know if I'm proud of it or not, but certainly that's definitely the thing that happens.
Great.
Not just with me, but also with all the co-founders. To be honest, they're much younger to me, so I'm cool.
Right. But I want to double click a little bit on you mentioning about being very early and getting this exposure, building in India for the world. The flip side to that is also saying that you have, as the founder of GalaxEye, one of a very unique vantage point rather of building deep tech hardware from India at very, very early in your career. And sometimes it can hit you that you don't have the right processes or systems built within you to handle the chaos that comes along with building something like this, right? Can you maybe talk about that a little bit, and then what do you actively do to build those systems and processes for yourself so that you can get on with building GalaxEye better?
Okay, I think I may give a very wrong message here, right? Like that it's easy, but no, I totally agree with you. When you are doing something for the first time, right? Like let's take an example of how do you acquire talent? Like you can acquire a talent who has worked on a software company before, and you are building another software, and then you're going to the market. But how will you acquire talent who has built satellites, or how will you acquire talent who has done a bunch of other things earlier? So then you need to really innovate at that particular time, and I would really say you innovate. You do a lean innovation there. How do you bridge the gap of not having all the scientists in the team to build that satellite, but have a bunch of people who are enthusiastic about building a satellite, who don't know a lot or who have never seen a satellite before, but they want to build a satellite, right? So how do you bridge that gap and de-risk this entire venture for you, your investors, your team, everyone? So, for example, with us, what happened was we brought in a bunch of ex-ISRO scientists who were willing to help the team, who were willing to mentor the freshers, who were willing to mentor, a fairly experienced, not very highly experienced, but fairly experienced industry person to understand the nitty-gritties of space, right? So that is one of the lean innovations where we said, hey, someone coming from the institute, someone coming from with a very small background in the industry, how can we make them suitable to really build a particular satellite subsystem? And that is where, we did this small lean innovation to kind of pass through that hurdle for some time. I do think these kind of lean innovation thought process or mechanisms you employ everywhere, right? Do you have a sales process, a defined sales process of deep tech in India? Possibly no. You will have to start writing that entire playbook, right? And you have to start trying a bunch of things to say, this works, this doesn't work, right? In my opinion, if you can really make your burn rates go lower, if you don't spend a lot during setting up the process and be as lean as possible, be as founder driven as possible, right? And as founders, be on your toes to be there, as much as possible, and find out the most deserving person to bring in the team to do that particular job, or find out the most optimistic process to put in place so that you run efficiently. Don't try to boil the ocean on day one. At least that's what our experience has been so far. We've never hired a non-tech team till the time we felt as founders that we can't do now more, right? So there was a limit for us to do A thing or B thing. And the moment we felt we are now overwhelmed with that particular work, we said, now we are going to hire someone to do this, right? Although this is an organic process, may not work for everyone, but within GalaxEye, it works pretty well. So we don't hire people until we feel that there's a need for someone to really do this, because that particular point of time, your job description for that profile is extremely clear. You can probably write 20 pointers, and those are not copy pasted from some other job descriptions on LinkedIn or anywhere else, right? So such things, putting together that lean innovation mindset and being founder driven is something that has worked for us so far, right? We still need to learn a lot throughout the entire process, but probably not just for deep tech, but I would say for anything that is very differently being built for the first time for a beachhead market, should be taking such kind of approaches.
Very cool. And places like Nirman would also help, I think, in the process of creating these talent nurturing and then putting them out for, very cool hardware startups like GalaxEye for that matter. I think one of my favorite thing to do whenever I go to IIT Madras is go to the Nirman building. Nirman is the pre-incubator at IIT Madras where students get to build a lot of cool things. Is to go to the first floor of that and look down on all the mess there is. You have several teams. There's a rocketry team, there's a hyperloop team, so many other teams, and we have melding machines. You just have a bunch of very young college kids with t-shirts and shorts on trying to scratch their head and then crack an engineering problem. That's one of the best things that you can see, I think, as an hardcore engineer,
right.
If I may say. Very cool. Now we move on to some quick takeaways for our audience. Try to not take more than 10 seconds for each question.
Difficult.
What would you change looking back on the journey so far?
Nothing.
What are you the most grateful for?
The support from families, investors, team, everyone.
Pick an alternate career path if not for space.
Formula One driver.
Interesting. One non-negotiable quality you look for in your team members?
The hunger to solve a problem solving skills.
And something you wish you did more of?
Spend more time with the family.
What's the big dream for GalaxEye?
Best satellite data company in the globe.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Suyash. It's been great. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Nithish, for having me here.
That's it for this episode. We'll be back with more startup stories. A big thank you to the audience for tuning in. Do like, share, and subscribe to our channel and get the best seats in house to understand how deep tech startups are shaping the future of our country. Until next time, I'm your host, Nithish. Crafting Bharat, a deep tech edition, is an initiative by NewsReach in association with VC Circle and produced by HT Smartcast.